Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 297, being recorded on April 23rd, 2014. I'm Ryan Shrout.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath.
I'm Alan Malentano.
You guys don't sound nearly as excited as I am about today's show.
You're better at faking it than us?
Okay, that's fair. I'm excited to not be on an airplane, so I think that's maybe where some of my energy is coming from. You beat FTL, and that's got to be great. I beat FTL on easy, and I really had never played it until I played it for maybe 30 or 40 minutes on the way out to Las Vegas yesterday, and I bet it took me a good 3 hours to beat it today. I was on my flight from Vegas to Houston, and then a little bit during my layover there. It's a pretty fun game. Although the learning curve was pretty steep, I felt. Like I really had no idea what I was doing for the first 45 minutes to an hour. Like I died very quickly, and I didn't know, how drones worked and lasers versus missiles versus what are the phasers, or the things that shoot across in lines?
Beam weapons.
Beams. There you go. But once I figured it out and figured out how like the different upgrades and stuff work, it was actually really fun. I was playing on the iPad. Obviously, I didn't bring my computer with me, and I didn't play it on the laptop. But and the touch controls worked pretty well. And apparently, there's an advanced mode in it on the iPad that adds new content or something. But it said for advanced FTL players, which I was definitely not. So I avoided that. But it was fun. Let's see. We're recording this live. If you guys want to join us live, some of you are joining us live that are watching this, but others are not. And if you're not, you're missing out. We record it on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. Other time zones, you can figure that out by looking at our page and seeing the countdown timer. If you just want to get an email notification about when we're going to be live, you can do that. You can sign up for one at pcper.com/subscribe. And when you go there, you get this little form. We ask for your name, we ask for your email address, and we only use it to send out notifications when we're going to do live events. And it seems like we may have some more of those other than our podcast coming up throughout the month of May and probably June as well. So you definitely want to go sign up for that list. And we'll send you an email there. If you want, you can, just follow me on Twitter at Ryan Shrouder. You can follow at PCPer. We always send out notifications when we're going live on that as well. We still have our ongoing contests partnered with EVGA. This is the post-tax day celebration. You can win an EVGA Hadron Air and a GeForce GTX 750 graphics card. And all you have to do is fill out the form at the bottom of the post where you ask for your name and email again. And then why should we love April 15th? Because we want to not be depressed about tax day. This is open up for anybody in the world. And if you want to go to our Facebook page, our YouTube page, or Twitter page, those are all extra bonuses for everybody involved, not just us or you. I think everybody gets a bonus when you visit those pages. And this is the first reminder or the first notification we have for an upcoming virtual LAN party. This is the 6th of these that the gaming group in our forums is holding, the Fragging Frogs. That name goes back a long time, doesn't it, Jeremy? You're muted, Jeremy.
Honestly, I was muted because I was typing.
Okay.
I honestly don't remember how many years it's I'm thinking 12, 14 years probably easily.
If you look at the logo, it's hard to see in Lenny's icon here, but it still has the AMD logo.
Oh, yeah.
So this is going to happen on Saturday, May 3rd, starting at 10 a.m. Eastern. It'll go throughout the entirety of the day. These are really cool events. They're in if you go to our forums and you go into the gaming forum, you'll see the thread for it, but we'll have the link in our show notes, of course. We've got some people signed up to play. AMD is going to be there. A couple of representatives are going to have prizes to give away. We have a TeamSpeak server where everybody can join and do voice chat that way. Games that are considered to be played are Battlefield 4, Titanfall, UT 2004. Everybody can get on some of that, I think. Need for Speed, Torchlight, Serious Sam. There's a whole bunch of stuff on here. And Titanfall was $36 if you bought it during that gold box sale. Was that Tuesday?
Yeah.
It was, because I saw it at like 4 in the morning when I was on the way to the airport. I was like, oh, hey, that's pretty cool. So hopefully you guys picked it up for $36 if you didn't already own it.
But if you really want to have fun, just make sure you've installed Unreal Tournament 2004 and the several gigabytes worth of updates that we use.
Yeah, the UT 2004. If you go to that forum, I think it'll have links to the places where you can download the updates that you'll need. UT 2000. When we did our gaming after the podcast, before I got old and had to go to bed at a reasonable time frame, I think we had the most fun playing UT 2004 by far in that stuff. It was definitely not a racing game. Am I right, Josh?
I'm sorry, racing games are far more fun.
No.
With a wheel.
Yeah, well, I bought some wheels. I found some wheels in my basement.
You did find some in your basement.
And it didn't help me any, so... Anyway, let's move on and talk about some reviews and news that happened this week. We'll start with a quick mention of Lee's review of the EVGA SuperNOVA 750G2 and 850G2 gold power supplies. This review just went up today. This is a brand new release of power supply from EVGA. The G2 indicating, I'm going to guess, Gold 2 or Generation 2, fully modular power supplies. I like the kind of, I don't know what finish you would call that. On
powder coat?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's now we're talking. It's got a nice powder coat finish to it. 750 watt. Looks like it's rated at what is this? 62.4 amps on the 12 volt rail, and the 850 watt unit is 70.8 amps on the 12 volt rail. So good news. You can use an R9 295X2 if you want.
You know what's nice?
What's that?
I just did a small review of a product. Power supply that had 5 amps on the 12 volt rail.
That would not power a Radeon R9 295X2.
It would not.
It would not. It would not. It does have a switch on the back that I think is funny. The Eco on off. So apparently it adjusts the thermal control system. When does the fan kick in based on the power draw and temperature draw there. It's a pretty good looking power supply. Lots of cables. Lee does a bang-up job on these power supply reviews. If you never watched that video, what was the name of that video we did, Ken? I think it was like learn about power supplies with Lee and Ryan. It sounds like a dumb video, but it's actually really, really, really informative. If anybody has interest in PC technology and power supplies in particular, you should definitely look up that video. It's on our YouTube channel. It looks like these power supplies are priced pretty reasonably as well. 850 watt unit will be $159, and 750 watt will be $129. And it did get an Editor's Choice Award from Lee, so that's a pretty good sign. 10-year warranty when you register.
10-year warranty?
Years.
Yeah.
Only I have products that are 10 years old, and they're all still sitting behind me.
Yeah. Are they in use, though?
Some of them are.
How often do you wear that motor? Do you wear that helmet while you're playing your racing games?
I should. Maybe I should also get my personal information, like I'm O positive, my age, date.
I thought he had a barcode back there.
Yeah, that'd be nice too. Yeah. The minor weakness is that it does not support EVGA's SuperNOVA monitoring software, which is kind of weird. But again, depending on pricing level of these units, that will vary. So now let's. We have many stories to talk about this week revolving around the AMD AM1 platform. We're getting a lot of coverage. We're getting a lot of ground out of this very.
We're getting a lot of mileage out of this sorry and old and tired piece of equipment.
Is it really old?
No, but it's pretty new and it's interesting, and nobody has really done a whole bunch of this stuff.
We've done a bunch. So Ken actually wrote up an article, AMD AM1 platform with the Athlon 5350, which is the flagship part of that family of parts, coupled with a GeForce GTX 750 Ti. If you remember, a few weeks back, we did an article looking at like a 1080p gaming system and how we did one that's like a good 1080p gaming system, and then we did one that was like the lowest cost 1080p gaming system, and that was using the Athlon X4 760K or the Intel Pentium G3220. And we had most of that still set up, and AMD sent you an AM1 platform, AMD sent us an AM1 platform, and Ken got curious and decided to hook it up, and because ours has a physical by 16 PEG slot on it, PCI Express slot on it, even though it only has by 4 electrical connection to it. But we were able to hook up a discrete graphics card, so we kind of wanted to see what that did. So the result is this story that Ken put together here. We did a video on it as well. So you took a $65 processor with a $35 motherboard, coupled it with a $150 video card, and what was that total price? Let's get down here. Total price was $440 when we built this out. That's motherboard, graphics card, 4 gigs of memory, a 1 terabyte hard drive, a $50 power supply that is way overdraw for power for like wattage, but I don't like the idea of cheaping out on a power supply, but we'll talk with Josh more about that later in the show. And then a $50 case, $440, and you get this machine. And the result is we compared it to we compared the Athlon 5350 to the Core i7 3960X platform, which is a 6-core, 12-thread Sandy Bridge E system that has 16 gigs of memory as well, by the way, but both with the 750 Ti. So the question was, how does performance scale between these two platforms? And, what does that say about, CPU usage in gaming, for example? So here's some of the results. The first one up top is Skyrim, and it's actually like one of the worst case scenarios. The blue bar is the 3960X, and the red bar for AMD is the 5350. You can see performance actually drops from 61 frames a second to 36, which is a dramatic drop at 1080p. And I think we're using pretty much very high image quality settings, something that we would normally use in our reviews. But if you look at Battlefield 4 and Crysis 3, performance is pretty much identical, right? So Battlefield 4, almost 30 frames per second with both the 6-core Sandy Bridge E and the 5350 Kabini processor. Crysis 3, very low frames, but still very close. And you can look at other games like BioShock Infinite or Metro Last Light, where there's definitely some difference between the 3960 and the 5350, but the advantages you get are not that great. For example, BioShock Infinite is completely playable on the 5350 at 1080p at ultra quality settings. We're getting over 50 frames per second. If you move all the way up to the 3960X, you get 61 frames per second. Now, Civ 5 and Hitman Absolution saw some bigger differences as well, but Grid 2 was smaller. So we saw some variance in what the differences were. Obviously, the 3960X is a $1,000 processor. The 5350 is a $65 processor. The chances of somebody buying a $1,000 processor and coupling it with a $150 video card are fairly small, I hope. But this was more of a exercise in education, right? Like we're curious to see what it would be. And if you had a 5350, you picked it up really cheap. If you add a discrete card to it, can it be a gaming platform? And the answer is it can. But I think at the end of the story, we were, would we recommend people building this? Probably not. I think for $100 more, is that what we decided, Ken? It was about $100 more. You could get the Pentium G3220 system, or even the Athlon X4 760K system, which has a little bit more expensive processor, a little bit more expensive motherboard. All the other components would remain the same. And I think that is going to give you more, headroom going forward, right?
But you're going to have to chip in some more money for a graphics card, more than $150 to get something significantly better than what, that extra $100 in processor gives you.
Yeah.
The $100 build includes a 270X.
Oh, did it? Oh, okay. So I think for $100 more, that's probably what I would recommend for people. If you're like super, super, super tight budget, this is an option. And that's really what we were kind of trying to demonstrate was what can you do with this? And it's pretty impressive from a power consumption standpoint. It's pretty impressive from a cost standpoint. What did we say this drew while it was gaming? 82 watts, I think. Total, that's CPU, GPU. It's a 25-watt CPU, right? And it's supposed to be a 60-watt GPU. Add a couple bit, a little bit in there for memory and platform and everything. And, we're right at about where we should be. And that was using a 1,000-watt power supply, I think.
Like an 800.
An 800-watt power supply. So even although actually we're using that Seasonic power supply, it's a 80+ platinum. So that would be pretty close to as efficient as you could get, probably, even if you were using a lower wattage unit. You think so, Josh? I think that's
Yeah, pretty much.
If you got an 80 plus platinum, it's gonna.
You're looking at 5 to 6 watts at tops.
Yeah.
So
not telling everybody to go out and buy this, but if you did, it's not a horrible, stupid mistake, which is kind of what the story.
Yeah, and if you gamed in the middle of winter in a very small room, it'll heat that.
No,
with that 80 watts.
Well, in a very, very small closet.
Very okay. In a cardboard box that's well insulated.
Yeah, a well insulated cardboard box with a power outlet, and you only need one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's easy. Pretty cool. And I think it was kind of surprising to see what it did. We had some requests in the comments like, "Hey, you should hook up a GTX 780 Ti to this and see what you get." And I was like, that might be interesting to see, compare the 3960X to the 5350. But I don't know if we're going to go there. I don't know how useful that is. We also had that same request in our next story, which again looked at the AMD AM1 platform. This was a look at basically the same hardware configuration with another video card, looking at, how did I word this? Scaling with AMD Mantle versus the NVIDIA 337.50 driver. You remember not that long ago, we were talking about the release of the NVIDIA 337.50 driver and the DX11 enhancements it's had and what performance advantages we saw. Starswarm is not a game yet. It is it's an engine demo. Thank you, Ken. It was built to demonstrate the capability of Mantle, to be quite clear, right? So they built a DX11 engine and they built an AMD Mantle engine, and this is from the Oxide Games guys. And their game that will come out based on this engine is going to have Mantle support and will have DX11 support. But both AMD and NVIDIA in their presentations kind of use Starswarm as a like a poster child for the advantages that their software changes were making. So we use the same AM1 platform with a 750 Ti and a R7 260X, somewhat equivalent performance and pricing parts, but we wanted something that was more relevant to the pricing segment of the processor. And I thought this would be a case, right? Because both AMD and NVIDIA have been talking about the advantages of Mantle and the advantages of the DX11 efficiency changes that NVIDIA has been making are on, or tend to surface more easily on low-end processors, that are trying to do gaming. And I thought, well, this is a pretty low-end processor that we just proved can do some gaming at 1080p if you want it to. So how does the implementation of Mantle and DX11 do that? So what we did was we compared, if you look at this first graph, we used the AMD 14.3 driver and the NVIDIA 335.23, and for the AMD driver we're using DirectX. So this is pre-software optimizations, as I call it. It's not maybe the best way to word it, but what we're trying to show is, here's our baseline. You can see what's interesting. We use the 3960X again, and we use the Athlon 5350. In both cases, the 750 Ti is faster than the 260X, just indicating that it has a little bit more GPU headroom. And when you give it more CPU performance, it scales better than the 260X does, right? Not necessarily new information or revolutionary, but if you look at it in post-optimized version, this is running 14.3 driver on the 260X with Mantle enabled, and then for the 750 Ti, the 337.50 driver. And what you'll see is that on the higher-end processor, the 750 Ti still maintains the lead, but on the low-end processor, Mantle was actually able to make up for the performance difference. And if you look at this kind of combined graph, you see this in a little bit different way. So the red bar indicates the pre-optimized version, the 335 driver and the AMD system running DirectX. The blue bar is the 337 driver and the AMD card running Mantle. So you can see if you look at like the low-end system with the 260X, it goes from 13 frames a second to 25 frames per second. That's a really, really, really impressive performance increase. That's the switch from DX to Mantle. Now, what NVIDIA sees with the 750 Ti is it goes from 15.5 to 23. So it still has a really, really, I think, impressively high jump, considering it is still using DirectX. I'm trying to find the exact percentage here. 49% is what NVIDIA scaled at. If you look at the high-end processors, Both of these are scaling much less dramatically, but AMD's Mantle and NVIDIA's 33750 drivers scale by 27 and 21%. So kind of in the same range, right? So it was interesting to see, and clearly the biggest benefit for Mantle is seen with the low-end processors. But AMD, I mean, this isn't a proof of anything necessarily. I think I said that in the article. This doesn't prove anything except that this one game demo, these software changes are affecting performance. I think it does kind of validate what NVIDIA was saying, that, hey, you can make improvements in performance using just DirectX 11. You didn't have to build AMD Mantle. And for AMD, it definitely says, well, it kind of backs up their claim that we think we can do more with Mantle than you could with just improving DirectX 11, right? So the argument will be, which is more beneficial to the gamer in the long run, getting game developers to develop for Mantle, or sticking with DirectX 11 that might have a lower peak, like a lower maximum improvement, but sticking within the confines of the APIs that already exist.
And another aspect that we kind of need to look into this with, and something we've discussed before, Mantle and DX12, they put the onus of performance on the developer rather than AMD and NVIDIA.
Right.
But if you stick with the DirectX 11, they have to do per game profiles to get the best performance using the DirectX drivers. So, how much does really, I mean, it's just par for the course that NVIDIA and AMD spend a lot of time and a lot of money to optimize each individual blockbuster game for DirectX. And
it's the argument.
Who are they passing the savings on, really?
Right. NVIDIA claims that the DX11 changes they made in the 337 driver were not game specific. Okay. That they were DirectX, like efficiency driver multi-threading specific, not really game specific. But even if you are of the mindset that they're not telling the truth there, I wrote in this article that a lot of readers are going to argue, and many of them have in the comments, that what NVIDIA did with 3375 is just game specific optimizations. And it isn't anything different than what AMD and NVIDIA have been doing for years and years and years. Game-specific optimizations have been around forever, or a very long time at least. Even though NVIDIA stated it, if you don't believe them, I would posit that it doesn't really matter either way, right? Because as it stands now, Mantle is incredibly is an enormous game-specific optimization, right? Because the game developer has to completely rewrite their engine to take advantage of Mantle, to take advantage of GCN architecture. So people that say, AMD fans that say NVIDIA is just doing game-specific optimizations, fine. I don't have a problem with that, and we haven't had a problem with it for the last decade, so I don't know why people would be throwing a fit about it now, because NVIDIA happens to claim that it's universal. AMD Mantle is the exact same thing, maybe even to a larger degree, right? Like it's well beyond AMD just having to like tweak the driver for a game to make sure its code paths are accelerated correctly.
No, they have to create an entire API and all the support behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that takes a few more hours than optimizing a single game.
Yeah. And I'm not even trying to say like which one is better or worse or anything like that, but just that the people that bitch about it one way or the other just don't understand how the systems work, right? Like, even
it's like, you know what? I would rather be hit in the head with a hammer than a sledgehammer. Even though I'm going to be dead both ways.
I don't know if
I'm going to really like that hammer hitting me better.
I'm gonna say that's probably not a very accurate analogy. Nobody's hitting anybody, but NVIDIA has a larger addressable space that they can improve performance on, all DX11 games, right? Where AMD is very limited to how many people can we get to integrate Mantle support, right? So if NVIDIA has less performance advantage, less potential performance advantage they have a wider selection of performance advantages that they could choose. AMD has maybe higher peak performance advantages potentially, but it's a very narrow focus, right? We've got what we have out: Battlefield 4, Thief, and there's another one.
Star Swarm.
No, I thought there was another game out too. No, just those two.
Well, the Beyond Earth from Sid Meier's will support it. It's not out yet, but it will be meant to.
Yeah, okay, so there's only 2 games that are actually out. That I thought there was a third. Okay, maybe not. So I mean that shows you, as great as Mantle is or could be, it's only changing 2 games potentially right now. And Star Swarm demo is just a demo, right? It's just a tech demo. So again, we've got lots of time to discuss it, and I'm sure we will in future editions of the podcast and stories on the site. So interesting look. Let's take a break from AM1 from now, Josh. We'll talk about it towards the end of the show. Your post that went up right here. Let's talk about some news items. Anybody interested in Haswell NUCs at their lower price? Alan, is this something that interests you at all? I know you like to water cool. You can't really do that with this. But
No, I only water cool like the main rig, but the entertainment center PC is usually either a laptop or like it used to be one of those little ASRock NVIDIA Ion in a box thing.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're great. You don't need to water cool just a little, thing doing entertainment center duties.
So, I mean, we've always liked the NUCs here. They're good performers. It's essentially the hardware of an Ultrabook in a 4-inch by 4-inch form factor. They were always a little bit more expensive. The Intel NUC D5-4250WYK used to be $399, and Amazon has it listed now for $329. And then the Core i3 version is $265. I checked earlier before the podcast, and it was still $329. Yeah, there it is. Still $329. So the prices still seem to be maintaining there. Now, the Core i5-4250U is a 2-core, 4-thread part with turbo frequency up to 2.6. It's the same processor and like a ton of Ultrabooks, really. And now, at $329, that's just bare bones kit. You have to buy other stuff. You have to buy memory, you have to buy storage, wireless, and a power cord. Look, I don't get into it. So at $329 for the bare bones, $40 for the crucial 4 gig DDR3L SODIMM. I have a 120 gig mSATA SSD here for $109. A $32 wireless card for 802.11ac. If you're going to use Ethernet, you don't have to buy this part, I guess. And then $4 for the power cord. It comes with the AC adapter, but not with the cord into it. So that brings the total up to $514 for all of those components to get your system up and running, or $450 if you happen to go with the Core i3 version of that. And if you really, really want to save money, you can get like a dirt cheap mSATA, like 32 gig or 60 gig drive. But obviously you're not going to be doing a lot of, you're not going to store stuff on there. So it depends on what your use cases are. At $515, does this become an interesting platform to anybody? I mean, this is a little bit more expensive than that Athlon 5350 with the 750 Ti we just talked about, but it's obviously a different form factor and a whole totally different use cases.
Really? Totally different use cases?
Totally different. You're not going to game on this. I sure wouldn't.
And you're not going to game on the 5350 just by itself.
But I said with the 750 Ti. Because that was $440.
You're looking at even less money for the 5350.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
But again, form factor, we had purchased a micro ATX case and a 450 watt power supply.
That starts building up the price quite quickly.
Yeah.
As compared to a NUC. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is still a little bit more expensive than that whole system was, but this is $70 cheaper on the bare bones system. So, you're going from about $600 to just over, $515, $520 for the build. I think it makes it a much more compelling option, though I don't know if it's still going to be earth-shattering sales. I don't know. I built one for my dad for Christmas that he uses for flight simulator stuff, and that worked out really well. It's inconspicuous. It's easy to use, but I don't know. Nobody has any interest in buying one of these now?
Still think the price point's a little bit too high.
You still think the bare bones part's too high? I don't know how much cheaper they can go, knowing that this is the innards of an Ultrabook. Right? The 329 bare bones price is your processor, your motherboard, the case, and an AC adapter. I guess that's it.
Yeah, but think about what you're competing with. You can get pretty decent laptops with even some form of NVIDIA graphics instead of integrated for less than that. And I'm talking a whole laptop.
Yeah, but they're much bigger.
So,
like, you have your laptop strapped behind your TV. That's not a solution that most
you can
people
Velcro
would.
this to the wall.
I don't know. A laptop is flatter than a NUC. I will say that.
Yeah, it could be. Most of them are, I would
A NUC
say.
is also VESA mountable.
Yeah, that's true. VESA mountable.
Yeah.
It's got an IR receiver on it. I think this is a really cool platform, and you can use it in a lot of neat ways, like the Gigabyte Bricks systems, the projector we've looked at, the Bricks Pro, like all based on the same idea, are really interesting devices. So if you're interested in that, it's cheaper, I guess is what I'm trying to tell you. Who wants to tell me about Ubuntu 14.04 LTS and why I should care? Nobody?
Well, maybe you don't want to leave XP or upgrade to 8.1 update 1.
All right.
But no, LTS stands for long-term support. So this is more of an enterprise level because you can essentially pick this and stick with it for years if you so desire. Because it does get updated about every 6 months, and you don't really have to worry about suddenly needing to do the brand new Ubuntu 15 or whatever the next release catches your eye is, unless you want to. So it's kind of nice, and it's obviously timed exactly for the end of life of XP, because boom, it's come out, it's going to be long-term support, so an enterprise customer, if they were thinking about switching to Linux, could be totally honestly told, oh no, we'll be supporting this thing for decades. There will be a branch of people that continue to support this forever and ever if you so desire, or you can upgrade at your own leisure the next time you sort of feel like it. So it's kind of neat. Apart from that, it doesn't really add a whole bunch. It's the Unity V7, Unity 7 interface. You can go for Unity 8 if you want. So that way you can go for the Windows 8 route where your phone and your laptop and your desktop and everything looks the exact same.
Is there
that stinks that Microsoft didn't do something like that, because I would still be running Windows 98 Second Edition.
Oh yeah, not the original one, but Second Edition.
No, Second Edition. It rocked.
Yeah.
So,
can you redo this in 16-bit, please?
Ken told me the last time they released an LTS was in April 2012. So I mean that's pretty good. Is there a reason? I mean, if you're an enthusiast DIY guy, would you use an LTS version, or would you just keep upgrading with the traditional paths? Ken?
Ericon's saying in the chat they're only supported for 5 years.
Officially, but there are
Okay.
people who just obsess about it and will support it.
Yeah, that's probably a good point.
Interesting. Corning has USB 3 optical cables. I didn't know this was a thing. Do
you have to be as careful with those as you do like the fiber stuff that I use to interconnect routers?
I hope.
Switches?
Well, at $3 a foot, you might want to be.
Ooh, geez. Okay, what's the benefit of going optical? Is it just
Distance.
Distance? Okay. So a 10-meter cable is $110.
So with USB 3, it's going the distance. It's going for speed.
She's all alone. Nobody was going to finish it. They ship 20-meter and 30-meter cables at some point later this year. So if you need long-distance USB 3 support and you have money, this is for you. And by the way, Scott, I know you're listening. Corning USB 3 dot optical cables now available. Very clever. Well done. I guess. AMD has new bundles. It's been a while. Never Settle Forever is back. Although with the name Forever, you would think it would not have gone away, but it kind of did. But now it's back, and it's a very similar system to what they used in the previous generation, where you buy a card, you either get a gold award, gold reward, silver, or bronze, and it's choose 3 games, choose 2 games, choose 1 game. If you buy a 295 X2, you get the 3 games, that's nice. If you buy any R9 290 or any R9 280 series, you'll get the 3-game reward category. 270 and 260 series are the 2-game, and 250 and 240 are 1 game. Now, it's not a blanket every game. For example, if you get the bronze, which is you buy an R7 250 and R7 240, you cannot pick from Murdered Soul Suspect, Thief, Tomb Raider, Hitman, or Sleeping Dogs, but you can go through Dungeon Siege 3, Dirt 3, Alan Wake, blah, 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 other things. Scott put together a well-made table here that gives you the yes-no ability to pick up some of these games.
That answers all of my questions.
Every question you've ever had.
Is my wife cheating on me?
Yes, no. Yes, no. Try again later.
They still won't give you a copy of Sleeping Dogs for the bronze tier?
No, Sleeping Dogs is apparently still too new.
Or Hitman.
Yep.
They did do some cool stuff. They're adding in indie game combos for this time. So if you don't want any of the games that they've listed there, you can get combinations like Banner Saga with Mutant Blobs Attack. That counts as 1 pick, the pair of them. Or Guacamelee and what's Dyad? Mutant Blobs Attack and Dyad, Banner Saga and Dyad, or Mutant Blobs Attack and Guacamelee. So you can use those combinations as one of your choice. Now they kind of did this. I feel like they did this last time. They never really added anything, but they claimed that they would add some stuff to this as the year goes on. They will continue with more additions in 2014, which ones, who knows. It is clear they have a great working relationship with Square Enix Europe. It says, we're not stopping with the titles you see here. More games are coming to Never Settle Forever later in the year. Stay tuned. I have no idea what they are, but bundle codes can be redeemed anytime between now and August 31st. If you just bought a card before this was out, that sucks. But, that's what you get, I guess.
If you only do like the bronze tier, then you end up having to settle.
No, you're never settling unless you wanted Deus Ex Human Revolution.
Then you're settling.
Because that game hasn't sold for like $2 on Steam.
I don't know what their licensing agreements is, for all these things. Obviously, like Thief, Tomb Raider, I get that. Murdered Soul Suspect, not out yet. Murdered Soul Suspect, which I believe is a game where you are murdered and you have to solve your own murder as a ghost.
Correct.
I don't think you're a ghost. I think you're a robot.
I'm a robot?
A ghost robot?
A ghost robot.
I thought I heard
solving my own murder as a robot?
I could be wrong. I thought I heard a game described like that recently.
I'd take that too. That's Murdered Soul Suspect again. That's coming out later in 2015. Titan Quest is on this list. The original Supreme Commander.
Ooh.
Wait, what?
Sepcom.
Yeah.
That's still a great game. I play that all the time with my kids.
I'm a little disappointed that there's nothing like new.
It's
here.
just Thief and that game that isn't out yet.
Thief.
Yeah.
Thief was in the last one, wasn't it?
Dirt 3 may not actually
Thief.
work on Steam because Steamworks has not been ported over yet to Dirt 3.
All right. Murdered Soul says, I don't know. There's no flagship.
But you can get a copy of Company of Heroes 2.
Yeah, I guess Thief. Yeah. So look for that if you're buying radio
something
cards.
is better than nothing.
Yes, I 100% agree. Yes, absolutely. It just you remember when Never Settle first launched and it was BioShock Infinite and Hitman maybe.
Wasn't Blood Dragon in there too?
No,
Yep.
yeah, it was at one point. It just the games
it was like Hitman, Sleeping Dog.
Dirt 3.
No, like BioShock Infinite, it was like, I don't remember what it was, but it was like the 3 flagship PC titles of the summer or something like that. Where like, wow, I can't believe you're going to get 2 of those games for free.
And you can still get them.
And you can still get them today. So obviously they had some certificates or keys or licenses left over. So speaking of AMD, they did release Catalyst 14.4. Anything interesting in this release, Jeremy?
Honestly, the big thing is full support for OpenGL 4.4. So for web games and for developers, this is an awesome thing. There's actually
Except
a long list I sort of trimmed down of what they've done. Sorry?
Except nobody actually has a product out that supports 4.4.
Correct, sir. They're thinking ahead for the next bundle when they're going to release a game that has.
Chicken or egg, baby. Chicken or egg.
Yep. Apart from that, there are just general sort of improvements across the board. A couple of Eyefinity issues fixed up. And on the Linux side, of course, there's support for Ubuntu 12.04, which is fairly new, and a bunch of tests have been sort of fixed for those people that benchmark in Linux.
Wait, they just added Ubuntu 12.04 support as they released a new LTS? Because that was the last LTS.
Yeah.
Good job, guys. Good job.
But you can run the 295X now.
RB Doom 3 BFG, the game auto quit when used the security camera terminal. That's a highlighted issue. That
is for Linux. And Ben Stone's going to be so happy about this.
Oh, and Sanctuary BM is also working better.
Bowel movement?
Eyefinity 3x1 with 3 4K panels no longer cuts off portions of the application. So that's good.
That's good. All right. I'm cool with that. Sweet. All right. Next up on the list, Alan, Kingston releases some large capacity mSATA drives. Anything interesting here other than large capacities?
It looks like no other changes other than they're just, hey, look, we're cramming a lot more flash onto these things.
I have a question. How come the larger versions, the 480 gig version, has slower write speeds than the 240 and 120 and 60 and 30?
Okay, so these are the SandForce ones, right?
I don't know.
So
yes, SandForce 2241.
Yes, the SandForce 2241 controller is only designed to address, or I don't want to say address, when it stores stuff on its flash, its table that it uses for remapping, for wire leveling and whatnot. The resolution of that table is optimized for up to 256 gig. Once you go over that, it has to start doubling stuff up, and basically, kind of like when you make an NTFS partition that's too big for 4K clusters,
okay,
and then it has to go 8K clusters, right? Well, this drive basically has to go 8K, so your random 4K writes slow down because it has to read, modify, write, or it has to basically modify an 8K chunk versus a 4K chunk.
Gotcha.
Stuff like that. So, and that affects the address.
The IOPS drop down dramatically too.
Yeah. So I was actually complaining about this way back when it was Vertex or something, like 480 gig model came out, and the specs were lower, like almost half the random write IOPS than 240 gig model.
Huh. Weird.
Yep. It's one of the catches of that particular SandForce controller.
Interesting. Scott wanted to correct me that he did not come up with USB 3.optical. That's actually Corning's official name for the product.
More like
and Corny. Why they're called Corning.
It's worse because you guys both picked it up. Also, what do we know about ULLtraDIMMs? ULLtraDIMMs.
Isn't that the next Avengers movie?
Yes.
The Age of ULLtraDIMM?
Yes.
Why so many L's, Alan?
I don't know.
Jeremy, why so many L's?
Ultra low latency.
He called it.
All right.
Termination
There's
random
just 2 L's.
access DIMMs.
Yeah, the TRA just got stuck there because DIMMs, I guess, wouldn't sell.
Tango Romeo Alpha.
So what am I looking at, Jeremy?
Well, you notice how that looks kind of like a DIMM?
Yep.
Well,
and it looks like an SSD. Look at those caps. They're super caps.
Yeah, it's an SSD. It's non-volatile memory.
Okay, all right, I'm in.
So what they're doing is saying, with PCIe SSD, you're limited to the channels that PCIe slot has, and you can't share load. If you were to put it on a dual-channel memory controller or a triple channel when they are finally arrived, or
they already did with
quads
the
come out. Now all of a sudden, you've got the super low latency that goes between the CPU and what you would normally consider your volatile memory, and the fact that you can now load share by diverting them between the different channels.
I don't understand. This goes into a DIMM slot.
Yep. A special DIMM slot. You're not dropping this in any system.
I just wanted to plug him into my computer.
Well, you could.
How would that work out, you think?
Post, but...
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, this is server apps because, I mean, for gaming and that, you're not really running into an issue with a PCIe SSD. You're probably still not saturating that bus. With a huge queue depth, latency starts to go up as the IOPS starts to stack up. This, not so much, because as I said, it's using the exact same connection between the CPU and the RAM.
So, I guess, what processors, I don't know what processors would support this. Like, the memory controller has to be built to understand all this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And so
Haswell will run this probably.
Supermicro and Lenovo have products which will actually support this, or at least the first generation of it. This is significantly upgraded from that.
It's weird. It's like Lenovo just bought someone's server and their server production.
Indeed.
Yeah, so it's
strange.
Very odd.
It's a weird thing. I hadn't really heard of them before. Now I'm thinking, oh, wow.
Let's talk about Toshiba 15-nanometer flash memory in mass production. Josh, what is interesting about this other than Fab 5 and Yokkaichi?
It's a small process. We're getting to the point. I believe that Alan was talking about this with Scott the other day on the hip chat.
Yep, hip, very cool.
And they're saying, like, with 10 millimeter, you're looking at about, with a line of silicon crystals, it's like 20 atoms.
Yep.
Long. Yeah, we're getting into really strange territory. I mean, how is that stuff going to be able to hold charge with that few atoms in there? Alan?
That's just the thing. It holds less charge. You have less atoms in order to have your cell to hold, resulting in less charge. And because there's less of a charge... So the smaller
the cell...
Well, you kind of have two things working against... Well, one works against you, one works for you. One, there's less atoms to hold the charge. But on the flip side, there's less area for the charge to leak out because the box is smaller.
So
yeah, but let's talk about sensitivity, because that's a big thing with my little... cell.
What?
Just keep going. Just keep going out.
I guess we saw this when we went from what did we do? 20. What was we had 22 nanometer flash.
25 to 20 was a jump because the amount of rewriting ability.
Right. So taking
charge holding,
taking the physical properties out of it and just looking at how that affected write capability. Right, they're saying, Scott says in this post that they guess that the flash should be able to handle around 1,000 writes on average compared to around 3,000 writes on Intel's 20-nanometer process. That seems bad.
Yeah, but so the counterpoint to that is that you end up with, like, as you keep shrinking and shrinking, you end up making larger capacity drives available.
Sure.
Right? So you get larger capacity, and so if you basically sold a drive with 3 times as much capacity for the same price as the Intel 20-nanometer stuff, then it would have the same longevity if you were writing the same amount per day.
Does this mean they have to over-provision more?
They do a bunch of different tricks. They change how the ECC works. For this, they're probably going to have to up the ECC, so they basically add more bits. So it's a 128... what is it? 128 megabit die, right?
Yeah.
From the article. So there's actually more than 128 megabits worth of cells there, right? There's always more for over-provisioning, not just over-provisioning, but spare area, right? Because a given die is going to have some bad spots on it, even at manufacture, but they try to make it so they're still selling it at 128 megabit, right? And then on top of that, there's extra space per page to do all the error correction stuff. So when you try to read from a page, which is usually 2 kilobytes, there might be another, up to like a half a K or something if you go real crazy on the ECC worth of space, so that it's able to error correct if it did catch errors. And flash memory works very much like hard drives and even optical media, where there's actually a lot of errors. You just don't, it's completely transparent to you because it's all being corrected on the fly. and there's just certain tolerances that they can handle up to the point where it's like, all right, this is a bad block.
You mean me scraping some steel wool across my DVD and still being able to play it?
Yeah, it's basically the same kind of thing. You're going to have some cells are going to leak.
Sounds like magic.
It kind of is.
PFM, pure
PFM, magic smoke, all that good stuff. That's interesting. They're saying availability soon. This is a SanDisk and Toshiba joint. I guess we'll, if we're going to be hip and cool about it. Let's talk to. We gotta talk to Josh.
It's only MLC, right? It's not like TLC stuff. They're still just keeping MLC, correct?
No, they're going to introduce TLC later.
Oh, okay.
And they'll probably have a much lower rating as well. And
3 writes.
Yeah, but we have so many cells in there.
3 writes.
In the last 5 years.
Let's talk with Josh again.
You have to.
Just one more time. AMD AM1 retested on a 60-watt power supply. This is, again, another story built around AM1. Tell me about this.
Some serious mileage.
They are.
This product that they sent me. AMD is going to be happy with this. When do they start writing the checks?
They're never happy with us.
Yeah, they didn't invite us to some things this past week, did they?
I was very sad.
Well, somewhat sad. Anyway, if you noticed in my review a couple of weeks ago, I used a 500-watt power supply with the AM1 platform. And I did that so I can get, good results from the FM2 Plus platform. I kind of compared against it. But a 500-watt power supply, when you put it on a product that's 25-watt TDP, you're going to have some efficiency problems, because no matter how efficient that big power supply is, it's just going to be wasting a lot of power on heat and conversion. So when you had originally sent me a non-working Intel board that was not necessarily your fault.
It was not.
No, it was FedEx, those dirty buggers. But it was a 60-watt notebook power supply. It was a 12-volt by 5-amp unit, hence 60 watts. And you put it in that nice little
pencil for scale
DC to ATX converter that you see right there. See those 2 wires at the top of the PCB? That goes directly to that little 60. No, yes, to that 60.
Rub those wires.
Watt. Rub them harder. Now faster. Show it to me. Anyhow. That converts it to an ATX power supply. And let me tell you this, you do not want to lick the coils. Do not lick the coils no matter what you do.
Now I have to lick the coils.
Lick the coils. But, so I wanted to see what the efficiency was. Now, I did make 2 other changes. I removed a Blu-ray drive, and I went from a Western Digital green 1 terabyte spinning drive to a 500 gig Samsung SSD, and we got to see these improvements in efficiency. It went from 23 watts of idle power down to 12 at totally idle.
That's low watts.
That's really low. I mean, when's the last time you've seen like a 12-watt light bulb? I think you stuck one in the plastic snowman at Christmas at one time. If you've not...
I don't know what you're talking about, but I'm going to assume that's something from the olden days. I'm just going to nod.
Before the LED movement, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, just very
So what about
small.
under load?
Under load, it was not as impressive. It was hitting 29 watts under load as compared to 37 with the 500-watt unit. So once wattage started to get up there, efficiency improved with the 500-watt unit. But still, we're seeing 8 watts, which is about 30% of what we're seeing. So it's a nice improvement by using a power supply that is better tailored for the usage of that particular part.
Yeah,
so,
and that part I've had for a while, right, Ken? We've
so
had that
those
for a while.
caps have dried out, and it's even less efficient than it should be.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
pencil for
totally.
scale. I don't. Why is the pencil in this picture?
Because my child was doing homework the night before.
And you say, get that homework out of the way. I have to test the computer.
I have to do testing. This is where I'm doing testing. You do your homework somewhere else.
Go to the garage.
Finish the homework or you have to lick the coil again.
Yeah. Get away, cat. Get away. All right, let's get into our hardware software picks of the week. I have a really odd one. I'm going to duplicate what my pick was last week. And the reason I'm able to do this is because I've run the joint. Also, I hadn't actually used it last week, I don't think. We used it for like 5 minutes. We turned it on to make sure it worked. I actually took it home, hooked it up to the entertainment center, and used it for quite a while. This is the Kindle Fire, or the Amazon Fire TV. This is the $99 little box that you connect to your TV into the internet. And it hooked up nice and easily. Hooked up, used Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet in this case, and had no issues with that. Using the interface is really snappy and really quick. Watched Skyfall. I had not seen Skyfall. It was one of the free available movies on Amazon Instant Video. Watched that. It started, I think it took 2 or 3 seconds to start. It never buffered. The image quality was good. It was 5.1 sound. I came away pretty impressed with it. You could switch between videos and between the settings and stuff like that, exit out, and when you would go back to any video, it would resume. It would pick up immediately. It's doing some kind of caching, obviously, for longer term storage there. There was an announcement today that Amazon is going to have a deal with HBO to have, like, you said 3 years and older type content available, we think for free, if you're an Amazon Prime subscriber. And then they did say HBO Go is coming to this as well, right? And that was kind of like the big thing that had been left out during the initial announcement, was that it had Netflix, it had Hulu Plus, has Showtime and Watch ESPN, all of those which worked fine, but without having HBO Go, it seemed a little weird. But they are going to add that in. So for $99, I came away, I don't know, it was pretty cool. I was disappointed. This is not a device issue, but more of a service issue, that they don't really have a way for you to say, show me all of the free stuff I can watch. If you're a Prime member, you get access to some free stuff, but a lot of times, like, even if I looked in the Prime Video section, it would have like a TV series, and you would click on it, and it would show up.
Or a really nice 70s B movie.
B movie, yeah.
It usually had some barbarians and space queens, which...
But the issue is, you go to a TV series, and like they have they've called like season 0 trailer essentially for it that was free, of course, but all the episodes you had to purchase individually or purchase the season. So I was a little disappointed to see that there was no kind of easy way to filter all of the free stuff. But I came away pretty impressed. Like, it worked well. The image quality while watching Skyfall was really, really good. I brought up the bandwidth monitor, and it was using in my home network, I want to say like 15 megabits down at one point for the majority of the movie. That's a pretty good high bit rate for video to use. It wasn't Blu-ray quality. You could see in a couple of places where things were really dark, you can see macro blocking and all that. But I was overall really impressed with the image quality, the sound quality, and the user experience of it. And for $99, Amazon's going to have the rate behind it. I don't want to vouch for any of the gaming crap on there, but it was a pretty neat device. So check that out if you're looking for some kind of home theater video box thing. I don't know. Jeremy.
Well, way back in the day before we had Uplay and other things to complain about, it was GameSpy that we all complained about.
Yes.
And so it was kind of nice to see it finally bite the biscuit. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, for those of you who like Civ 3 and Civ 4, because Civ 5 just ain't quite what it's cut up to be, and you can't mod it and play multiplayer, it could well kill your Civ 4 games. Steamworks has just made a deal with 2K, and so come the end of next month, Civ and the original Borderlands are going to be moving to Steamworks. So you aren't going to have to buy it again if you miss the Sid Meier's bundle that I posted a couple of weeks back, where you could get everything for about $5 or $6.
So they got Civ 3 and Civ 4, but no Dirt 3, huh?
Unfortunately, not yet. There is still a link of games which are up in the air. We know that Battlefield 2 and Bad Company 2 already are going to get ported. But, yeah, there is, Jet Fighter, Stronghold, there's a couple of other ones, and, yeah, Dirt that we don't know about. So there's still time. They may still be supported, but honestly...
Battlefield 2 is going to be supported still?
I don't
1942
why,
is
but
going to be supported.
Wow, that's
I almost
awesome.
want to install 4, put 2 back on and see if people still play it.
It was free like 6 months ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got it on Origin.
I don't know if
played
played
it
it
or
or
not.
not.
Oh, yeah.
Dun 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 dun.
Wake
But
Island
1942 not so much.
forever.
Very cool. Josh.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I don't even remember what I was talking about anymore.
It's in the show notes.
How about
Who cares? I don't read show notes.
He's talking
Show
about
notes
Michael
for
Bolton, I
losers.
think.
You guys all read those show notes? You losers.
XN Wi-Fi.
Fine.
FM2
It's a
plus.
gigabyte motherboard.
Oh, okay.
And I've been using this one for comparative purposes, and I was highly impressed by it. I mean, it's very small. It's compact. It's feature-packed. It's only like $106 for everything you get. Throw on an APU, and you've got a nice home theater PC that's got AC, 1200 Wi-Fi? Well,
yeah. I don't remember if it's 1200.
It's AC.
Yeah, it's AC.
Definitely. So that's really inexpensive for something that's got.
It looks like it's got a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah, we like lots of stuff.
It's got dual HDMI,
Hey.
USB 3, USB 2.
Huh.
Oh man,
It's a bargain at half the price.
it looks like a nice little product.
It is.
What APU would you put in there, Josh, if you were you?
If I were you, I would probably do just an HD 6700. That's a 65 watt TDP part, and it's going to play everything you want at pretty speeds.
Did you say HD 6700?
Sorry, A10 6700.
Okay. Because I could take a graphics card and maybe rip off the GPU part and try to shove it in that socket. Would that work?
As hard as you could.
Would that work?
With a C-clamp, perhaps.
Just solder it down. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. All right, and we're going to finish up with Alan, as we typically do.
Yeah. So remember a few weeks back I had you guys, playing all these other old games, like Descent.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. You showed us
So
Descent.
I was curious if they did something similar with Battlezone, many of the Battlezone series. And I looked for Battlezone 2, and apparently it's still actively being patched by the original people that made it. And you just downloaded the music pack.
Yeah, I'm downloading it. Yeah, thank you.
So, there's actually, if you go on their forum, there's even a newer version, like a 1365, alpha, whatever, right? So it's still like, and that was released less than a month ago. So they're still patching this thing and updating it, and it runs on my 30-inch native resolution.
This project has been in development since September of 2001.
Yeah, I mean,
Kim Jong-il was still alive.
What they're really kind of going heavily on now is the multiplayer stuff. So it's been, now it does like over the internet multiplayer and all sorts of cool stuff. But you can still play through the single player.
You could play this on the 5350, couldn't you?
Yeah, it does. It does something like, I got a GTX 680 and it goes like 1,000 frames per second. You can play it on pretty much anything you want, even the new version.
Man, this website's so awesome. I got to see the forums.
The forums are decent.
I don't think that's a Battlezone logo up here. I'm just gonna.
No, it's some generic whatever. I don't know.
Matesfamily.org. Okay.
Is Pochi on there?
Who? I don't know.
What?
Pokey? Pokey? P-O-C-I?
Oh.
See on the forums? You should check.
I'll check for sure right after this.
He's everywhere.
I'll get right on that. So we'll have the link for that in our show notes at pcper.com/podcast, as well as links to all the stories we discussed here today. But we're going to cut out all the ones that Josh talked about because we're going to delete those from the podcast. Again, pcper.com/podcast. Go there, find the RSS feeds. We had a tepid response, I will say, for the video RSS. We had, I would say maybe a dozen people that were really excited about it, and then a lot of people that obviously didn't send me any emails. If you send me an email at podcast@pcper.com to express your interest in a video RSS file, we'll look at setting that up. If we don't get a bunch, we probably won't. I don't know. We'll talk about it this week. Ken doesn't seem to think it's a lot of work, but it's just one more thing for us to screw up on a weekly basis. You know what I mean? You know what I'm getting at? Looking over there.
I hear you.
Yeah. pcper.com/subscribe. Find out when we go live. We record this live on Wednesdays. Most Wednesdays, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. It's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't know if people watching it actually think it's a lot of fun, but hey, we get something out of it. And what else was there? I don't know. Go to our Twitter pages, facebook.com/PCPer, twitter.com/PCPer, youtube.com/PCPer. And don't forget, we have the virtual LAN party on Saturday, May 3rd. Head into the forums. You can follow Lenny on Twitter. I will look up his name real quick. And you want to sign up for that. And it's free and open. There'll be prizes they'll give away during the day, which is always good, and AMD has been a good supporter of that. You can follow on Twitter Lenny A42, Lenny A42, and he will tweet out information about the LAN party and that kind of stuff. And of course, we have the EVGA giveaway still. What was that? bit.ly/PCPerContest01?
Yes.
I hope that's right since we just recorded that. So go there and fill out that form and enter that contest. And thanks to EVGA for their support on that stuff. With that, we're going to end the 297th episode. We're getting pretty close to that 300. And I don't think anybody's made any plans for it yet.
I have.
Skip it.
I've got a bunch of Windows 98 OEM discs that I'm going to send to you.
Okay.
You can send them out as prizes.
So we should install Windows 98 during the podcast. Just cut to it every once in a while.
Yeah.
You know, it had a pretty sweet blue and black screen. It was more graphically intensive than Windows XP.
Really?
Think about it.
I don't want to. So that's it. We will be back next week, I guess. I'm Ryan Shroud, probably.
Jeremy Hellstrom.
Durs, sorry about your grandma. Cheers to her. And I'm Josh Walrath.
And I'm Alan Mamatana.
Goodbye.